1941. The United States government started selling Series E defense bonds.
Jeff Chandler, a once-renowned movie star who captivated millions of audiences with his enchanting smile and mesmerizing eyes. Yet his death remains an unsolved mystery. Over half a century has passed, and rumors, whispers, and chilling theories continue to surround his passing. Was it a tragic accident? Or perhaps a conspiracy that no one dared to publicly acknowledge? Today, for the first time, we will unveil never-before-released details, clues that make the truth about Jeff Chandler's death not only shocking, but heartbreakingly unbelievable. Get ready to confront the reality Hollywood once tried to bury. Born Ira Grossell in the bustling borough of Brooklyn, New York, Jeff Chandler emerged into a world that would ultimately shape one of Hollywood's most magnetic and multifaceted stars. As the only child of Anna and Philip Grossell, Chandler's early life was marked by upheaval. His parents separated when he was still a boy, leaving him under the care of his mother. Yet, even amidst domestic shifts, young Ira exhibited a precocious talent and a magnetic presence that hinted at the star he was destined to become. It was during his years at Erasmus Hall High School, a breeding ground for future luminaries, that Chandler first dipped his toes into the world of performance. Sharing the stage with classmates who would themselves become icons, including the legendary Susan Hayward, he discovered an early passion for acting that would define the trajectory of his life. Despite his father's insistence that he pursue a career in the family restaurant business, Chandler's ambitions leaned elsewhere. The arts called to him with irresistible force, and he briefly immersed himself in formal art studies, supplementing his learning with practical experience as a layout artist for a mail-order catalog, earning a modest $18 a week. These formative years of juggling dreams with reality honed his resilience and work ethic, qualities that would later underpin his meteoric rise in Hollywood. Chandler's breakthrough, however, was more than a mere convergence of talent and opportunity. It was a testament to his unique presence on screen. Towering in stature, with prematurely silvered hair and a voice of deep resonance, he commanded attention effortlessly, a trait that set him apart in the competitive arena of 1950s cinema. His portrayal of Cachice, the stoic and principled Apache leader in the critically acclaimed Broken Arrow, 1950, was a defining moment not just for his career but for Hollywood itself. The performance, imbued with dignity and emotional depth, earned him an Oscar nomination and established him as a compelling figure capable of transcending the conventional boundaries of the era's leading men. Yet Chandler was never content to be confined to a single identity within the entertainment industry. Beyond his cinematic achievements, he ventured into music, releasing a series of albums that showcased his baritone voice and undeniable charisma. He was not merely an actor or a singer. He was an entrepreneur, founding his own production company and asserting creative control over the projects he chose to pursue. In an era when the studio system often dictated the lives and careers of actors, Chandler's determination to carve his own path reflected a rare blend of ambition and foresight. Chandler's allure extended beyond his artistic endeavors. In Hollywood's golden age, where glamour often masked the human stories behind the screen, he stood out for his authenticity and versatility. Whether portraying historical figures, rugged adventurers, or complex contemporary characters, he imbued each role with a sincerity that resonated with audiences and critics alike. He was more than a handsome face or a resonant voice. He was a figure who embodied the restless, aspirational spirit of mid-20th century America, a man who pursued his dreams with relentless dedication while navigating the pressures and pitfalls of fame. While Jeff Chandler's career illuminated the silver screen with power and charisma, his private life told a far more turbulent story, one filled with passion, disillusionment, and the heavy toll of fame. To the public eye, Chandler was the quintessential leading man, an emblem of masculinity whose silver hair and commanding presence stirred admiration from audiences across the globe. Yet behind the glamour of Hollywood's golden lights lay a marriage strained by absence, sacrifice, and the relentless demands of stardom. In 1946, Chandler married Marjorie Hoschel, a fellow actor with her own ambitions in the industry. Their union, at first, carried the promise of stability, a family that could anchor Chandler amid the chaos of rising fame. Together, they welcomed 2 daughters, Jamie Tucker in 1947, and Dana Grossel in 1949. Parenthood introduced Chandler to a new dimension of life, one that many of his fans assumed would ground him. But the realities of his career proved otherwise. Hollywood, especially in the post-war years, was unforgiving to those who sought balance between professional ambition and private contentment. Chandler's star was on the rise, and with it came an unyielding schedule of long shoots, publicity tours, and obligations that seemed to consume every waking moment. Marjorie, left to shoulder much of the domestic life on her own, grew increasingly disillusioned. She complained of his chronic exhaustion, noting how he would fall asleep almost anywhere, drained by the pressures of performance and the endless demands of Hollywood's studio system. More than mere fatigue, this was symbolic of a larger absence: the emotional and physical distance that accompanied Chandler's obsessive devotion to his work. In many ways, his marriage reflected the archetypal struggle of Hollywood unions, a relationship overshadowed by ambition, where love too often gave way to duty, and where partners were left to navigate lives lived in the public gaze. By the mid-1950s, the fissures in Chandler's marriage had widened into chasms. Despite attempts at reconciliation, the couple separated several times before ultimately divorcing in 1959. The dissolution was not only emotionally painful, but also financially burdensome. During the proceedings, Chandler was required to pay $1,500 per month in child support, alongside a substantial alimony settlement and a one-time payment of $100,000. A staggering sum at the time. For a man whose public image exuded strength and control, the private negotiations revealed a vulnerability that contradicted the polished persona fans adored. Complicating matters further were Chandler's extramarital entanglements, the most notable of which was his affair with Esther Williams, the iconic swimming star whose grace in the water had made her one of MGM's brightest attractions. Their relationship blossomed in 1957 while the two were working together, capturing the attention of gossip columns and fueling whispers across Hollywood's social circuits. For Williams, Chandler's charm was undeniable. For Chandler, the affair was perhaps both an escape and a rebellion against the constraints of a faltering marriage. Yet their romance, though intoxicating, added another layer of controversy to his already complex personal life. It was a reminder that even stars who embodied moral strength on screen could not escape the very human frailties of desire and conflict. Chandler's romantic life, riddled with passion and upheaval, mirrored the duality of his career: disciplined on set, yet impulsive in matters of the heart. Friends and colleagues often remarked on his intensity, a trait that fueled his artistry but also complicated his relationships. Hollywood, with its temptations and relentless spotlight, provided little refuge for a man already consumed by ambition. To Marjorie, his devotion to work was not merely dedication, but an obsession that left no space for intimacy. To Esther, he was both lover and enigma, a man caught between the expectations of family, fame, and his own restless pursuit of fulfillment. The turbulence of Jeff Chandler's personal life was soon overshadowed by an even darker chapter, one that would bring his career and his very existence to a heartbreaking close. At the dawn of the 1960s, Chandler was still a commanding presence in Hollywood, balancing his acting with business ventures and the occasional musical project. Yet, behind the veneer of success, his body was beginning to betray him. The same relentless work ethic that had propelled him to fame was now exacting a fatal price. In early 1961, Chandler was cast in Merrill's Marauders, a gritty World War II drama to be filmed on location in the Philippines. The production was as demanding as it was ambitious, requiring cast and crew to endure the sweltering tropical heat, erratic weather, and challenging terrain. Chandler, known for his discipline and refusal to complain, threw himself into the work. To the men who served as extras, actual soldiers stationed overseas, he wasn't merely a Hollywood star, but a comrade willing to share in their hardships. It was during one of these moments of camaraderie, a casual baseball game with servicemen on April 15, 1961, that fate delivered its cruelest blow. Diving for a catch, Chandler landed awkwardly, injuring his back. Though he grimaced in pain, he brushed it off with his trademark stoicism, insisting that the show must go on. A doctor on set administered painkillers, allowing him to continue filming, but the injury was far more severe than anyone realized. As the weeks passed, Chandler's condition worsened. Friends later recalled that he appeared unusually pale and withdrawn, often excusing himself to rest between takes. Crew members whispered about his stubbornness, marveling at how he continued to perform action scenes despite visible agony. Some speculated that his drive was fueled not just by professionalism, but by an unspoken fear that if he faltered, Hollywood's fickle machine might simply move on without him. After all, at 42, Chandler was no longer the youthful newcomer with silver hair that seemed like a novelty. He was a veteran star aware that leading man roles had a short shelf life. By May, his pain had become unbearable. On May 13, 1961, Chandler checked into a hospital in Culver City, California, for surgery to repair what doctors diagnosed as a herniated spinal disc. At first, the procedure seemed routine, a chance for recovery and renewal. But what followed was a cascade of tragic missteps and medical complications that would forever alter the narrative of his life. During surgery, an artery was inadvertently damaged, causing massive internal bleeding. Hours-long operations ensued as surgeons fought to save him, pumping in extraordinary amounts of blood. Chandler's resilience, the same quality that had carried him through the toughest roles of his career, seemed to sustain him for a time. But the damage was too great. Over the next several weeks, Chandler endured additional surgeries, his body increasingly fragile. Rumors swirled in Hollywood, with some suggesting negligence, others speculating that the relentless schedule he had kept on set had exacerbated the injury. In a cruel twist, the man whose screen persona had embodied rugged strength and resilience was now confined to a hospital bed, fighting battles no camera would ever capture. Visitors spoke of his remarkable calm, even humor, as if he understood that the role of his life was nearing its curtain call. Some accounts claim he joked with nurses, insisting he'd be back on set soon, while others suggest quieter, more reflective conversations, as if he was reconciling with a life both triumphant and incomplete. By June, complications mounted. Sepsis set in, leading to pneumonia, a lethal combination in the pre-antibiotic advancements of the time. On June 17, 1961, Jeff Chandler breathed his last. He was only 42 years old at the height of his career, still in demand, still adored by fans. His sudden passing sent shockwaves through Hollywood. For many, it seemed inconceivable that a man of such vitality could be gone in an instant. At the time of his death, Chandler was romantically involved with British actress Barbara Shelley, whose career was just beginning to take off in international cinema. Their relationship, though relatively private, added a bittersweet note to the tragedy. Friends suggested that Chandler had been contemplating a different future, slowing down, perhaps even stepping into directing or expanding his production company. These dreams, like so much else, were cut short. The funeral was a spectacle befitting his stature, attended by over 1,500 mourners. Hollywood royalty and devoted fans alike gathered to pay their respects. Among the pallbearers were Tony Curtis and Gerald Moore, themselves icons of the era, visibly shaken by the loss of their friend. The image of Chandler's silver casket, carried solemnly through the crowd, remains etched in the memory of those who witnessed it. A stark reminder of how fragile even the brightest stars could be. He was laid to rest at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City, California. His final resting place, a quiet contrast to the tumult of his career and personal life. In the immediate aftermath of Jeff Chandler's death, grief and disbelief dominated headlines. Fans mourned, colleagues reminisced, and Hollywood tried to move forward. Yet beneath the public sorrow simmered a quiet unease, a sense that something about his passing didn't quite add up. His death certificate listed sepsis and pneumonia as the ultimate causes, but whispers of negligence and unanswered questions refused to fade. For years, speculation clung to Chandler's story like a shadow, until persistent investigation revealed that the tragedy was not merely an unfortunate accident. It was a preventable disaster born of medical failure and systemic concealment. An official inquiry launched in the early 1960s concluded that Chandler had fallen victim to catastrophic medical errors during his spinal surgery. The revelations were chilling. Records suggested that doctors ignored warnings about Chandler's allergies to certain anesthetics, administering them regardless. Post-operative notes indicated lapses in monitoring and inconsistent communication among surgical staff. What should have been a manageable condition spiraled into a nightmare of repeated operations, uncontrolled bleeding, and ultimately, a fatal infection. Chandler's daughters, Jamie Tucker and Dana Grossel, were thrust into a legal battle they never asked for, but felt compelled to pursue. Represented by their mother, Marjorie, they filed a lawsuit against the hospital and the attending physicians, seeking $1.5 million in damages. The case drew immense media attention, framing Chandler not only as a Hollywood casualty, but also as a symbol of the dangers lurking within America's healthcare system. The courtroom drama played out against the backdrop of a nation still dazzled by his films, with every headline amplifying the scandal. Jeff Chandler's death, star or victim? The proceedings painted a grim picture. Testimony from nurses hinted at chaotic conditions in the operating room, while internal memos revealed that certain medical reports had been deliberately withheld. Although the final settlement amounted to $233,258, a fraction of the original claim, the hospital never admitted fault. For Chandler's family, the payout felt hollow, a bandage placed over a wound that refused to heal. Justice, in their eyes, remained elusive, but the story did not end there. For decades, medical files related to Chandler's case remained sealed, buried under layers of bureaucracy and confidentiality agreements. Only whispers circulated in Hollywood's tight-knit circles. Rumors of malpractice, of cover-ups, of a star silenced not by fate but by negligence. It wasn't until years later, thanks to the relentless determination of Chandler's eldest daughter, Jamie Tucker, that the truth finally clawed its way into the light. Jamie, who had inherited both her father's resilience and his unwillingness to accept easy answers, began her own investigation as an adult. Partnering with investigative journalists, she fought tirelessly to unseal her father's medical records. For her, this wasn't just about accountability. It was about restoring dignity to a man whose life had been reduced to whispers and speculation. After years of legal wrangling, the files were made public, exposing a trail of negligence and deception that shocked even seasoned observers. The documents revealed that Chandler's death was anything but random. His allergy warnings had been ignored, a catastrophic oversight that set the stage for his decline. Surgical missteps compounded the crisis, while hospital administrators scrambled to obscure the errors, fearing reputational damage more than they feared the truth. In the end, Chandler's death was not merely a personal tragedy, but a systemic failure. A reminder that even the most celebrated figures could be reduced to statistics by institutional carelessness. These revelations reframed Chandler's legacy. He was no longer seen solely as a Hollywood idol who had died too soon, but also as a victim of a system more concerned with self-preservation than with human lives. The scandal raised broader questions about accountability in medicine, fueling debates about patient safety and transparency. Some even speculated that if Chandler had survived, his career might have taken a different trajectory, perhaps toward directing, perhaps toward new roles that showcase the maturity and gravitas he had begun to cultivate. Instead, audiences were left with the haunting sense of what might have been. Adding to the intrigue were rumors, never fully substantiated, that certain influential figures had pressured the hospital to downplay its mistakes, fearing the fallout of a public scandal involving such a high-profile patient. Whispers of backroom deals, hushed meetings, and carefully worded press releases suggested a coordinated effort to protect reputations rather than pursue truth. Whether these allegations were exaggerations born of grief or reflections of reality, they added an enduring layer of mystery to Chandler's story. Ultimately, the release of the medical records confirmed what Chandler's family had long suspected. His death was not the inevitable outcome of bad luck, but the preventable result of neglect and deception. For fans, the revelations were devastating, transforming a beloved actor's tragic death into a cautionary tale of systemic failure. For Hollywood, it was a reminder that even its brightest stars were not immune to the darker forces that shape human life. Jeff Chandler's story does not end simply as the biography of a Hollywood star. It endures as a cautionary tale, a reflection of how fame, pressure, and negligence can intersect with devastating results. On screen, he embodied strength, dignity, and timeless charisma. Off-screen, he wrestled with exhaustion, fractured relationships, and ultimately, a medical system that failed him in his most vulnerable moment. His life, as dazzling as it was difficult, remains a reminder that behind the red carpets and flashing cameras, the cost of stardom can be painfully human. The revelations surrounding his death did more than tarnish the reputation of a hospital or highlight one family's grief. They exposed cracks in a system many assumed was infallible. For years, people whispered about the what-ifs. What if doctors had heeded his allergy warnings? What if the surgery had gone smoothly? What if Chandler had been given the chance to step into new roles? Perhaps even behind the camera, where his creativity might have blossomed in unexpected ways. Imagining that alternate path only deepens the sorrow of what was lost. He might have been remembered not just as a silver-haired leading man of the 1950s, but as a director, a producer, or even a mentor shaping the next generation of stars. Yet, perhaps the most haunting legacy lies not in what Chandler might have done, but in what his story teaches us. Fame could not shield him. Talent could not save him. Even wealth and influence could not guarantee his safety when negligence entered the operating room. His tragedy resonates because it strips away illusion, reminding us that behind Hollywood's golden facade are fragile lives, susceptible to mistakes, oversights, and the relentless weight of ambition. For audiences today, Chandler's films are not just entertainment, but windows into a time when the studio system ruled, when stars carried the burden of perfection, and when personal struggles were carefully hidden from public view. His death and the truths that came to light afterward force us to reconsider what we expect from our idols and what we owe them in return. Perhaps his most enduring role is not Cochise, nor the countless soldiers and lovers he portrayed, but that of a symbol, a reminder that vigilance, accountability, and compassion are as essential in life as they are in art. And so, Jeff Chandler's story becomes a call to action, a call to question the systems that govern our lives, whether in healthcare, entertainment, or beyond. A call to look beyond the glamour and remember the humanity of those we idolize. And perhaps most importantly, a call to preserve these stories, not only to honor the lives of those who came before, but to ensure that their struggles, mistakes, and triumphs continue to shape how we live today. If Chandler's tale has stirred something in you, if it has reminded you of the fragility of fame, the hidden costs of ambition, or the enduring power of truth, then let this be more than a story you watch and forget. Let it be a reminder to look deeper, to ask questions, and to seek out the untold histories that lie behind Hollywood's polished mask. And if you want to continue exploring the secret lives, triumphs, and tragedies of cinema's greatest stars, we invite you to join us on this journey. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you'll never miss the stories that reveal the human heart behind the Hollywood legend. Because every star, no matter how bright, casts a shadow, and it's in those shadows where the most compelling truths are often found.